Hi, and welcome to K Nun Productions, giving you the straight dope on dogs.
There are many good reasons to hate dogs, and most if not all of them should be very obvious. Despite this reality, those of us who express a perfectly reasonable and very healthy preference to avoid dogs and to not be forced to encounter them at every turn, well, we continue to be stigmatized. Worse than that, they still don't get it. After all this time, after all our explanations, and the embarrassment of riches in terms of evidence of how much dogs truly do suck, people still feign incredulity.
Anyway, today we are going to be going onto the subreddit Dog Free, and I will be absolutely obliterating this subreddit because I am very close to a primary source who is actually a professional and someone who is famous in the dog world who's been training dogs in the military for a very long time, and I can tell you that there is a 98% chance that whatever issue the dog has, it's usually related to a lack of training from the owner. Very rarely are dogs too difficult to get up to a high level of obedience.
Anyway, that last clip, that's just one example of many I could provide. I have no idea why this guy is talking about getting dogs up to a, quote, high level of obedience, because the issues with dogs extend far beyond such considerations. The problem isn't that they aren't well trained enough, or some such bullshit. I mean, it certainly doesn't help, and these days it's obvious that very few dog nutters even bother with the most basic kinds of training, which, by the way, is all the more reason to not allow them to own these dangerous mutants, especially in such high numbers. But the problem isn't that dogs aren't obedient enough. At this point, it's that they're there at all, because these days, dogs are just about everywhere we turn. The problem is that those of us who never chose to own dogs are nevertheless subjected to them and the ill effects they assuredly have on society. They also harm the environment, and even a cursory examination of dog culture reveals just how toxic and insane the whole thing is.
Nobody knows why.
I don't know what happened.
Overall, something we unfortunately have to clarify from time to time, and this is for those who may be sympathetic to our cause and who genuinely seek to understand what we're about, and who may themselves be, quote, dog haters in the making. These channels and forums do not exist to promote or endorse the abuse or mistreatment of dogs. What the dog culture critic denounces is dog ownership itself, and that would be us, dog culture critics. It really isn't difficult to comprehend. Personally, I've always preferred the term dog-averse individual to dog hater, but it matters not what we are called. What's more, it is perfectly normal to have anything from a slight dislike to a very strong hatred of anything on par with dogs and their widespread ownership in terms of its detrimental impacts. Let's not forget that dogs fucking kill people. They torment and terrorize. They hound and harass. They annoy and aggravate. They introduce allergens and filth into any and all environments they come into contact with. They reduce the value of neighborhoods and really bring the quality of life down for all who are unfortunate enough to be around them. And it is not enough simply not to own one. Take barking, for instance. Obviously, this noxious noise transcends property lines, and that is only one example. But I won't belabor the point. Everybody in a dog-infested neighborhood knows exactly what I am talking about. Now, let's be clear about something. The vast majority of dog defenders, unfortunately, cannot be convinced. I am well aware of this. You will fail to help them see the light, and so forth.
And you're always gonna fail.
So this is not me trying to appeal directly to dog defenders. Nevertheless, any good-thinking person with a modicum of empathy or understanding should be able to comprehend why we hate dogs and wish they were out of society, out of everything, really. And remember that even if I stop making content, you've still got my videos. You have the other channels on here, and you have online support.
And my axe.
But in all seriousness, here is a great comment where a very good question is asked, aka, why does American society, or I would personally add, any society, make not liking dogs such a stigma?
Out of all the social taboos, this one makes the least amount of sense. I seriously cannot see why one admitting they do not like dogs has become this unspeakable thing that will get many people to dogpile on them. No pun intended. And I just sit here and I ask myself, why is this the case? Why do some of us feel like we have to keep our dislike of dogs to ourselves and not express it out loud? Due to the feeling of shame? We shouldn't have to feel this way. There isn't the same amount of stigma for people saying they don't like other animals, but when it comes to dogs, there's this unspoken rule that you either profess your love for them or you keep quiet to not be judged by others. And I just have to ask, why can't liking or not liking dogs be like it is to like or not like any other animal in the world? Dogs aren't these deities that need our constant worship. They're animals. But in American society, dogs are not just animals that you can like or not like. They're these angels sent from heaven who need our constant appraisal. And this idea is just so nauseating. And it scares people who aren't fans of dogs into silence. I mean, outside of this sub, there are very few places on the internet where people openly profess that they don't like dogs without shame or without trying to justify themselves. I have seen people brazenly say the most out-of-pocket, offensive, and ridiculous nonsense known to man, but disliking dogs is seen as this line one shouldn't cross. And honestly, that's why subs like these are a blessing. It gives me hope that not everyone feels obligated to adore dogs.
Someone on Quora asked why so many people have an issue with the dog-free subreddit. I like this answer. In this post, Penny points out the following.
Dogs are so culturally ingrained as somehow integral to Western society that they're literally everywhere, and there is nowhere for people who don't like dogs to unload and vent their frustrations. Dog owners can be some of the most intolerant bigots on the planet when it comes to addressing the notion that anybody out there might not like their precious fur baby. They call us psychopaths and accuse us of probably abusing animals. They accuse us of having a mental problem. They suggest the sub be banned and will falsely flag posts in the sub as spam or harassment so that Reddit's automods will censor them. They fail to address that some of us just can't even be around dogs, including one comment I saw where it was suggested that an autistic person with a hygiene aversion to dogs just themselves, and another comment in which a person with facial scarring caused by a dog mauling was encouraged to engage with sweet pities because it simply isn't natural or human to fear all dogs just because of one bad experience. There are a lot of dog owners who simply can't accept that some of us don't like dogs.
And let's be real, the part where it says,
they call us psychopaths and accuse us of probably abusing animals.
Almost any time a dog defender of some kind utters the word animal or animals, they are talking about dogs and not any other animals. If there's something I hate more than dogs themselves and dog owners, it is the notion that hating dogs makes someone a bad person. There's no reason to think that hating or disliking dogs makes anyone somehow lesser or inherently wrong just for that view. Seriously, think about how insane this sounds. Oh, and real quick, here is an example of what I was talking about with the whole animal thing. You can pause the video and read this out yourself, as I will not be going over this at length.
I have to stop it. No. I have to. Look at what's happening.
An 8-year-old boy is spending the days before Thanksgiving in the hospital.
Can't resolve a dispute with your neighbors over their barking dog.
This woman chooses to walk away.
A dog that got loose mauled a 5-year-old boy playing in his cousin's backyard.
That, and a whole lot more, that is what we are forced to live with. I did want to briefly address this as well. What you see here is a great comment exchange, which actually inspired me to make what was originally going to be a much shorter video on the topic of nutters telling us we must hate dogs because we were bitten by one as children or something. I would encourage you to read this thread. I've gotten this a lot myself, and I've addressed it a couple of times before, but wanted to speak on it one more time.
Legit question? Why such personal hatred for dogs? Bad experiences as a kid?
That is, in fact, word for word, what I got as a comment from a dog nutter who never acknowledged my subsequent response. Of course, what else can we expect? My answer was as follows. I mean, I do have personal reasons for disliking them, i.e., they have made my life a bloody hell, in addition to various reasons which have nothing to do with me, for rejecting their presence in society. To answer the second part of your question, I actually had a dog when I was a child, although this was fairly short-lived and wasn't until a little bit later in my childhood, though not anywhere near my teenage years. And no, I was never bitten by a dog when I was young, if that's what you're expecting me to say. The short answer is that I feel dog ownership should just fall out of favor completely at some point. Why, you might ask? Because it's archaic and harmful, and essentially a scam to enrich companies and corporations at the expense of the general public. The longer answer is that I have made multiple videos thoroughly outlining reasons that would answer such a question. I will also add now that it is so fucked that dog worshippers mockingly tell us that we must hate dogs for this specific reason, as if they find the idea of harm befalling a child to be a source of humor or pleasure, or some sick shit like that. How and why is this funny to anyone, or a reason to dismiss our arguments? How does it not make sense to hate dogs for this very reason? Of course it would make sense to wish to avoid these vile predators, having gone through such a traumatic ordeal in the past. There's absolutely no reason to give dogs a chance after that, and there's nothing to be gained from interacting with dogs at any point in one's life, from infancy to the deathbed years, or months, weeks, days, whatever the case is. No point in between is a good time to start embracing dogs. That is the point. I also wanted to share this great comment, posted by Ty Turner. I found it rather insightful, and may in fact go over it and add some thoughts of my own in a future video. Finally, I want to say this. I'm honestly tired of repeating many of the same points for dog apologists, which is why I have mostly stopped engaging with them, not entirely, but for the most part. These people somehow can't get it through their thick skulls that we know everything they're going to say ahead of time. To be honest, we could even script out mock debates, predicting how these exchanges will go with surprising accuracy. And maybe the dog-brained among us are better off being incapable of enlightenment, edification, or education. Or rather, we are better off without them. And if those who absolutely insist on all this bullshit about dogs being true have to learn the hard and irreversible way what dogs are really about, then maybe they're better off themselves not being around. Personally, I can't imagine what it must be like to be one of these people, a term I use very loosely to describe them. Unfortunately, they bring us down along with them, as we have to live in a world of their making, actually. It's really quite serious. If people want to sleep on these videos or ignore the arguments in them, so be it. But the information is out there, and several of us in this space have already single-handedly discredited dog culture and all the deceit it is erected upon. Or in other words, virtually all views and statements on dogs, especially mainstream ones, are built on a foundation of dishonesty and falsehood.